Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki. So, Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone to this morning class. Thank you all for coming. All of you are senior to me, but with your permission and your blessings, hopefully something useful can be said today. So today we're going to continue our series on Transcendental Diaries by Hari Sauri Prabhu, who was a servant of Srila Prabhupada, personal servant. And we are going to focus on 15th February 1976 in Mayapur. So just to read from his diary. In this morning's class, Srila Prabhupada described his ambitious plans for showing the higher regions of the universe in the Vedic planetarium he's proposed for Mayapur. There is a Siddhaloka. We shall show how this planet works, Siddhaloka. The description of the Siddhaloka is there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Siddhaloka persons, they can go from one planet to another without any machine or airplane. Like the yogis, those who are perfect yogis, they can go from one place to another without any vehicle. There are many yogis still existing. They take bath in 4 dhams, in Haridwar, in Jagannath Puri, in Rameshwaram. And similarly, yogis can do that. They attain Asta Siddhi, 8 kinds of perfection. So the Siddhaloka means they are born Siddhas. They haven't got to practice this mystic yoga system. To illustrate this point, he gave the simple, effective example of some siddhas that live within our immediate experience. He pointed out how birds and insects can fly automatically, but we cannot. We have to create so many big machines. So this is Prabhupada speaking about the TOVP, which we are fortunate enough that we are actually seeing this TOVP manifesting before our eyes. But Prabhupada had envisioned this even in 1976 and showing the Vedic planetarium and describing different planets, one of which being Siddhaloka, where everyone there is born with 8 kinds of perfect mystic powers. And sometimes that might seem strange to us, like people are being born with mystic powers, but even here within our experience we can see that there's some entities like birds and insects that automatically have these abilities that we don't have. They can fly and we can't. So it isn't that much of a stretch to understand that there could be a place where people have incredible powers. I'll just mention the mystic powers. This is found in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, Verse 22, purport. They're quite incredible powers. So there's Anima Siddhi, which means becoming small like a particle. Laghima Siddhi, which means becoming lighter than a soft feather. Prapti Siddhi, where what's described is you do not have to get anything and everything from anywhere and everywhere. It basically means you can just get objects from anywhere else in the creation and you can get it from where you are. Mahima Siddhi, which means to become heavier than the heaviest. Ishitva Siddhi, to create something wonderful or to annihilate anything at will. Vashitva Siddhi, to control all material elements. Prakamya Siddhi, to possess such power to never be frustrated in any desire. And Kama Vasya Siddhi, to assume any shape or form one may desire. So these are quite incredible powers. I wouldn't mind having a few of them, or even one. But the irony is that when people in this world display even one of these abilities, the society can just accept them as God, because that's how cheap our definition of God has become. People just manufacture some gold from their hands or something, and naturally they just accept it as God. It's probably similar to like if we went to a forest of trees, and the trees could speak to us, and they would tell us like, "Wow, you can move, you can walk. That's so incredible. I've never seen anything like this. You must be God." Little do the trees know that there's billions of us all who have that ability. And similarly, there's billions of people with all these 8 powers, all these perfections, and the whole planet is full of them. Siddhaloka, everyone on Siddhaloka has all these perfections. So these things are nothing special, but we take them as something godlike. And the truth is stranger than fiction even, because now there's so many superhero movies, superhero fiction, where these people have all these amazing powers, but they don't have anything compared to these. These powers are way better than anything displayed by the superheroes from our imagination. These are incredible powers. But even all of this there's nothing really special about it. There's many planets where everyone has these abilities. And obviously God has these abilities as well. But we can see that specifically when Krishna comes in his original form as Krishna, he's not so focused on displaying all these kind of abilities. He's more displaying his loving relationships with his devotees, which is what attracts us to go back to the spiritual world. So that is something of real value. Having a loving relationship with the source of us, that's the only thing that will fulfill us completely, not having all these abilities, although I wouldn't mind a few of them. So I'll just continue the reading. Prabhupada's idea in having a planetarium is to show that the statements made in the Vedic scriptures are authentic and based on scientific fact, not simply mythology as commonly misunderstood. There is no question of disbelieving, he said. It is not to be rejected. There cannot be any, this is unbelievable. We have got this information from the Shastras. We are staunch believer. Yes, there are siddhas. That is called theism, one who believes in the statements of Shastra. Very highly intelligent persons, thoughtful persons, philosophers, scientists, mathematicians, they are called also Muni. They came also to satisfy the Lord. Not these ordinary Munis, but very exalted Munis and Siddhas from Siddha Loka. There are many lokas, Charana Loka, others. They are all described. So if there is chance, we shall present these lokas, how they are situated, where they are situated, how they are moving, how the sun is moving around them. The sun is not fixed up, sun is moving. all these things we have got such dream to show. If there is opportunity, we shall do. The modern scientists or astronomers, they say, sun is fixed up, the earth is moving. So we don't say that. It has got its orbit. So there are so many things to be known still from Vedic literature. It is not yet unfolded, but we are trying. So the TOVP team has got their work cut out to fulfill Prabhupada's desire of showing all these things. Because I think the 5th canto is not known for being easy to understand. But yeah, Prabhupada makes this important point here that theists, we are theists who accept what we find in the Shastra, which is very important because actually when you accept what's in the Shastra, or at least theoretically accept what's in the Shastra, you can save yourself a lot of time. Like the material scientists will endeavor very hard to find out information over many years and many generations of study and research, and then we could have just shortcut the thing and told them, yeah, the Vedic scriptures say the same thing. Like, over time, the astronomers found out, the distances from the sun and things like that, but all this information was in Surya Siddhanta and other scriptures. So they could have just saved a lot of time. Like if we say, 2x plus 2 equals 4. Now the Vedic scriptures say, okay, x equals 1. But we, because of our attachment to scientific methods and maths, let's work it out, let's use some methods and we'll solve this problem. And then we find out the same answer. But now we wasted all this time. So it's a big value to just accept the Vedic literature, not blindly, accept it and understand how it is correct. And then we save ourselves a lot of time. And also, we accept the Shastra because sometimes the Shastra has things that we can't understand. Like the Shastra will mention that the stool of an animal is impure. So, you have to take a bath if you touch the stool of an animal, which makes sense, it's dirty. But then also in the Shastra it's mentioned how pure cow dung is. And that seems like a contradiction, right? How can the stool of an animal be impure but cow dung is pure? Doesn't make sense at all. And scientists and those of us with scientific minds might immediately say there's something weird going on here. But then actually if you study, you find cow dung has antiseptic properties. And so the Shastra has things way beyond what we can understand with our tiny brains. So Prabhupada is making this point that we need to accept what's in the Shastra. Okay. And maybe we should just pause at this point for any comments or questions or reflections, because there's many different themes throughout, so instead of lumping everything towards the end, if there's any comments or questions or anything before we move on. Okay, so the next pastime is from the same day, 15th of February 1976, and it's just a nice communication that Prabhupada received. A letter from Mike Darby, a high school student in West Virginia, bore ample testimony to the efficacy of reading Srila Prabhupada's books. He has written a term paper for one of his high school classes based on the teachings contained in Chaitanya Charitamrita. In order to continue his work, he requested a personal interview with Srila Prabhupada next time he is in America. He warmly expressed his appreciation. I have read most of your books on transcendental science and have enjoyed them very much. No, I have not just enjoyed, but tried to base my life on their teachings. What you have written is so perfect because this knowledge has been passed down from the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. Srila Prabhupada is always happy to hear from grateful recipients of his books. He works literally day and night tirelessly only for this. If someone reads his books and understands that Krishna is God and everyone is meant to serve him, then, as he often says, his mission is a success. He told Mike to come see him later this year when he next tours America. So this is a very nice opportunity that people had in the past. They could read Prabhupada's books and request an interview with him, and he would grant them that. Prabhupada, he was so grateful to hear anyone, and this is just a high school student, it's not like the president or something, but he was so happy to hear that this person was grateful and appreciating his books, and not only that, but also trying to base his life on their teachings. And we know even in the Bhagavad Gita preface, Prabhupada mentions, "We hope, therefore, that people will derive the greatest benefit by studying Bhagavad Gita as it is, as we have presented it here. And if even one man becomes a pure devotee of the Lord, we shall consider our attempt a success." So, Prabhupada didn't have these, obviously he thought big and he dreamed big and he created all these temples and he had so many disciples, but his attempt was just, let's see if one person can become a pure devotee of the Lord, then my mission will be successful. So, the next pastime is from the 16th of February 1976, the next day. Last night, Prabhupada had rasgulla and nimkins, tasty homemade biscuits which are offered to the deities each evening. He spilled some rasgulla juice on the mat. Immediately, hundreds of ants came to enjoy. This has happened a few times. Each time as I clean up, Prabhupada stops to watch me and make some pertinent philosophical remark. Prabhupada often likes to use such simple real-life examples to illustrate philosophical points in his classes. I felt honored when this morning he mentioned me and the ant episode to convey a point he was making in his lecture. In the verse, Prahlad Maharaj clearly stated that the Lord is not impressed by any of our material qualifications. He can be satisfied only by devotional service, which even Gajendra the elephant could offer. Srila Prabhupada described how modern men think themselves very intelligent by building atom bombs or by gaining wealth. However, real intelligence is going back home, back to Godhead. So Prabhupada speaking, "To get some money by hook and crook, that is not intelligence. That intelligence I see. I was telling Hari Sori, I was explaining that even a small ant, as soon as there is a drop of sugar juice, immediately, within a second, hundreds of ants will come. Here is a drop of sugar juice. This is nature's study. This kind of buddhi, intelligence, how to eat, how to sleep, how to have sex, and how to defend, even in the ant is there. That is not buddhi yoga. The real buddhi yoga is how to be engaged in devotional service of the Lord. How to become first-class devotee of Krishna. That is called buddhi yoga. How to go back to home, back to Godhead. That is buddhi." Everyone has got intelligence. Even the ant has got intelligence. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath ki, Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. We study sometimes. The sparrow, he has got intelligence. But the perfect intelligence is there when one is searching after the absolute truth. In conclusion, he explained that material achievement and opulence are not needed in order to approach God. Only the favor of Guru and Krishna is required. And with Srila Prabhupada as our Guru, clearly we are well favored. So don't be disappointed, Prabhupada said, that because I am poor, I cannot become devotee. Everyone can become devotee, even the children. Just see how the children are dancing. They are chanting. they are offering obeisances. That is bhakti yoga. Everyone can become a devotee, provided he is properly guided. That is required. Krishna says, I'll give you intelligence. If one is working under the direction of the spiritual master with love and faith, then Krishna from within as Chaitya Guru, the Guru within the heart, he'll help you. And he'll send you bona fide Guru to help you externally. So both ways you'll be helped and you'll become like Prahlad Maharaj. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So, this whole lecture that Prabhupada is giving is very much focused on the difference between intelligence and real intelligence, or buddhi yoga. Because generally in this world, people often say, oh, this person is intelligent, that person is intelligent, referring to IQ, referring to how well they do in school, or various types of things. But Prabhupada is very much emphasizing that real intelligence is how to become first-class devotee, how to be engaged in devotional service, how to go back to home, back to Godhead. That is buddhi. And we also know of the famous verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5.32. In the age of Kali, intelligent persons perform congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead, who constantly sings the name of Krishna. Although his complexion is not blackish, he is Krishna himself. He is accompanied by his associates, servants, weapons, and confidential companions. Obviously referring to Lord Chaitanya. So, because all of you are worshipping, performing congregational chanting to worship Lord Chaitanya, it means you're all intelligent. So, this is the definition of intelligence for us. Are there any comments or questions at this point before we move on? Okay, so the next pastime is also from 16th of February, 1976. Srila Prabhupada strongly reprimanded the temple managers this morning. There was no running water in the building, again, for the third consecutive morning. The bathroom water system is gravity-fed from holding tanks on the roof. The pumps that fill the tanks have to be turned on by hand. As the festival approaches, more and more devotees are arriving, putting a greater demand on the system, but no one seems to be paying attention. Prabhupada also corrected Mahavira for telling everyone that he is now the temple president and manager of Mayapur. Mahavira has set himself up in an office. Several devotees already are complaining that he is asserting himself as the supervisor of the entire project, demanding that they follow his instructions, although he knows very little about how the Mayapur management operates. First become expert in all departments before becoming manager, Prabhupada told him. You have to be servant of everyone before you can manage. One cannot demand respect. So this is a very important instruction from Prabhupada, especially for all of us involved in any sort of managerial or leadership roles. Thankfully I'm not. But first become expert in all departments before becoming manager. You have to be servant of everyone before you can manage. One cannot demand respect. So this concept of servant leader is something that has become actually quite prominent even in the secular world. I know just recently I started a new job, and on just like the second day, one of the directors just below the CEO happened to be passing by, and he introduced himself to us who were newly starting, and he said, and then someone introduced him as, oh, here's the big bosses coming now. And he said, and he clarified that, it was joking, but also he said, I'm a servant leader. Actually, you are the boss. He was pointing at us. You are the boss. I'm your servant. It's my responsibility to to make sure that you have everything you need to do to prosper in your role. And so this is happening even in the world out there. There's this popular concept of servant leadership where the leader is actually the servant of everyone else. And especially within ISKCON, Prabhupada really wanted that concept where the leader is actually the servant of everyone under his care or in his responsibility. So, and then, first become expert in all departments before becoming manager. So, it's not an easy thing at all. Are there any questions or comments there before we move on? Okay, so the next pastime, also from 16th February, more and more visitors are coming for darshan in the evening, and Prabhupada has worked out a new system to facilitate them. Most of the guests are simple villagers. They come and sit in his room and simply stare. So Prabhupada told us to stand at the door and give out sweets. The guests should not be asked directly to come in, but they also should not be refused entry. If they wish to enter his room, they can be escorted to the balcony. There they will be given a seat and prasadam, and then asked to fill in a form giving their name and business. Then Prabhupada will call them. This, he said, is screening without a screen. Those who simply wish to look can come to the door, offer their pranams, and receive some prasadam. They will then go away happy. Those who have something specific to discuss will gladly wait. It is actually a botheration for Prabhupada to give darshan to so many people, but he cannot refuse them. So he has decided on this procedure. It will satisfy the people and save him from criticism. Prabhupada mentioned one well-known yogi who, for the same reason, used to see the public only once a year. Prabhupada said that he could not do that, but this new system would suffice as a good compromise. So Prabhupada, went to great extent to receive guests. Guest reception is such an important thing in our culture that, there's that famous verse that even an uninvited guest must be accepted as good as Narayan. So obviously Prabhupada wanted to give his mercy to everyone who came, but at the same time, you don't want to get swarmed by hundreds. There's the villagers, the simple villagers in Mayapur, and I've had the pleasure of seeing them. They're so sweet, and they can transform your heart just by being in their presence, the Mayapur villagers. But there's hundreds and thousands and millions of them. So you don't want to deny them Prabhupada's darshan, but at the same time, so that's why he allowed everyone to come. Those who want to look can just come look, receive prasad, and go away. And those who specifically wanted to discuss with Prabhupada could enter and fill in a form and stuff. So Prabhupada got, the best of both worlds, where he allowed everyone access to him, but at the same time, had it manageable such that he's not got millions of people trying to come in his room. Any comments or questions there? Oh.
Thank you. I was thinking more about the previous one, and the thought came later. Is that okay? That point about first become expert in all departments before you become manager. It's really cutting, powerful. I was wondering practically, can we expect it? Do we expect that the manager is expert at making garlands? Do we expect, I'm just thinking practically, how do we take this? I understand the essence that Prabhupada is saying, and I guess we experienced it also in COVID, that when you actually have to go through every department and do things, then you realize, what it feels feels like after you cook a Raj Bhoga, and what else you can manage in that day, So I can see the practical aspect of how it is beneficial, but the other side of the practical aspect of, is this really possible? That's just my question.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I know, but even in the secular world, this is actually a common practice. Like, when a father who's a CEO of a business is handing over the business to the son, he doesn't just hand him and put him in the head office. So he'll make him go through all the departments, even if he's not an expert in all departments. Like, the head of a business should know exactly what's going on in all the departments. At least, practical hands-on experience, like go see what the HR person does, what this person does, what this person does. Maybe you won't be expert in it like them, but at least know what's going on there. Because if you don't have a clue, then it's hard. How can you manage, like if you're managing the deity department, but you've never made a garland before, it's just not gonna work, So even if you're not the expert in making garlands, at least if you've made some, if you know everything of what happens in all the departments in your care, it will set you up to at least manage them appropriately. Of course, in the material world, there's this other phenomenon where, people are lazy and don't like to work and stuff, so they'll tell you, oh, I can only do this much in a day. But after, when you in that department, you realize, oh, no, this person is just slacking. But obviously in devotional service, hopefully that's not the case, and everyone's just very enthusiastic for their services. But it is important, I would say, for a manager, even if he's not expert in all departments, to at least know the basics of all the departments in his care. Obviously, Prabhupada's standard is become expert, but failing that, at least basics. Oh, I thought your hand was up. Okay. Is that okay? So the next pastime is now on the 17th of February, 1976. Instead of going to the roof for his morning walk, Prabhupada decided to inspect the construction site of the new building. The work is going on at full speed, with hundreds of men digging, carting, shoring, and stacking. It is an impressive sight. The foundation stretches about 1,000 feet, the entire length of the northern boundary of our property. It will be an extremely long building, 2 stories high and built in the same style as the main guest house, with a wide veranda and decorative arches. They are building the 2 floors upon a high plinth, so if the Ganges floods, the rooms will not be affected. When Prabhupada asked what would be done with the plinth, Jaipataka Maharaj said it will be filled with dirt. Prabhupada considered this a waste of valuable space. He instructed them to make it into a basement instead. That way there will be extra rooms for storage. Srila Prabhupada appeared satisfied with the progress of the work, and it is hopeful that it will be habitable in time for the festival. So here we're seeing, in addition to one of the previous ones where Prabhupada was talking about the bathroom water system and reprimanding the managers for not filling the tanks, and here he's looking very in detail at the construction and saying, don't waste the space, don't fill it with dirt, you make it into a basement. Prabhupada is very practical, and which is quite an amazing thing, how practical and down to earth he was in all his dealings. And it's showing the importance of management here again as well. And we might wonder, or someone new might wonder and say, you know what, throughout this diary, in fact, I'm listening to things and I'm seeing a lot of Prabhupada looking at construction, Prabhupada looking at the water. I would have expected more like Bhagavad Gita verses, Bhagavatam verses, but he's talking about construction, about water, about all this. And someone might be confused and saying, I thought devotional service is a bit different from all these things. But then we see that the devotee sees everything as Krishna's energy, which is meant to be engaged in his service. So there's no difference between Prabhupada, speaking the Srimad Bhagavatam and then also advising about construction and water. Everything is about engaging Krishna's energy in his service. And so that's just a very important concept to always remember. Sometimes we might not be so enthusiastic to do something that appears mundane, but actually all these things are very much devotional service. Sometimes we might not be attached to like administrative and managerial things, or services that don't really appeal to us, but everything is part of devotional service. And it's about engaging everything in Krishna's service. So the next pastime is from the 17th of February again. For class, each morning, Dayananda is reading aloud from the unedited transcripts of the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj. While not grammatically correct, the Indian English style of Prabhupada's translations have a unique charm and flavor of their own. Today he read text 10 of chapter 9. So this is what Prabhupada's unedited translation is. And later on I'll read Prabhupada's actual translation, which we find in the Bhagavatam. So the unedited translation is like this. Prahlad Maharaj continued to think that a Brahman who has qualified himself with all the Brahmanical qualities, 12 in number, as they are stated in the book known as Sanat Sujata, such a Brahman, if he is not a devotee and to the lotus feet of the Lord, he is especially lower than a devotee who is a dog-eater even. But his mind, words, activities, wealth and life, everything is dedicated to the Supreme Lord. Such a low person is better than a Brahman as above mentioned, because such low-born person can purify his whole family, whereas a so-called Brahman falsely in prestigious position cannot purify himself. So there's a whole style there. Yeah, I don't do justice reading because, when you hear it in Prabhupada's voice, there's a whole charm to it. So this is what we'd find in the Bhagavatam after the editing. If a Brahman has all 12 of the Brahmanical qualifications, as they are stated in the book called Sanat Sujata, but is not a devotee and is averse to the lotus feet of the Lord, he is certainly lower than a devotee who is a dog-eater, but who has dedicated everything, mind, words, activities, wealth and life to the Supreme Lord. Such a devotee is better than such a Brahmana, because the devotee can purify his whole family, whereas the so-called Brahman in a position of false prestige cannot purify even himself. So, this verse is mentioning a devotee who's a dog-eater is superior to a Brahman, although you don't expect devotees to be dog-eaters, but even if they are, they're superior to a Brahman. Prabhupada gave a long talk. At one stage he pointed out that in the Vedic civilization, one's position in human society is determined by what he eats. Generally, the meat eaters, especially pig and dog eaters, are considered the lowest, untouchable. But worst of all are those who feast on the cow. Prabhupada speaks, in India still, generally those who are meat eaters, they take meat of such animals like goats, lambs, like that. And they never take cow's flesh, because the cow is protected. Go Raksha. So in the Bhagavad Gita, even if you are meat eater, don't eat the cow. You can eat other animals, pigs, goats, but don't eat cow's flesh. That is very sinful. Why it is sinful? Because it is a very, very important animal in the human society. Very important animal. You get milk and milk products. Then your brain becomes very nice, memory sharpened. That is therefore important. Don't eat. But Prabhupada said that in Krishna consciousness it doesn't matter what one's background is, provided one has adopted the process of Krishna consciousness. The Prabhupada speaks, so here it is proof that dog eaters or pig eaters or any low-grade man is not prohibited to become a devotee. That is our Krishna consciousness movement. They say that without becoming a Hindu or born in India, nobody can become a Brahmana. Nobody can become sannyasi. But here is the proof. In the Shastra, the dog eater is also highly praised. When he sacrifices everything, his body, his mind, his words, only for Krishna. This is called Tridanda Sannyas. So, anyone can actually become a sannyasi if they dedicate everything, their body, mind, and words, only for Krishna. And wherever they're born, because typically historically there's been this kind of idea that if one is born in India or is born a Hindu or born in an Indian body, they are somehow superior to others. And there definitely are advantages, to being born in India because you're exposed to Vedic culture and things. But it doesn't automatically make one superior to anyone else. And in fact, someone not born in India who actually becomes a devotee is far superior to someone born in India but not taking advantage of the favorable conditions that they have in Krishna consciousness. I remember once, I was actually looking for the reference, but I couldn't find this one, but I remember it quite clearly when some of the Prabhupada's disciples were seen by some of these caste-conscious Brahmins and pujaris in India, and those pujaris told them, if you perfect your life, it's very good what you're doing. If you perfect your life in devotional service, then in your next birth, you can take birth in India, and then you'll be able to become a real devotee. Basically, to that effect. And so the disciples told this to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada's response was, if they practice devotional service perfectly in this life, then in their next birth they can take birth in this movement. So that was, Prabhupada could see very much beyond this whole, Indian born and, this bodily platform that especially those who are caste conscious in India are very much attached to. Are there any questions on that before we move to the last pastime? Okay, so the last pastime is from 17th February 1976. During the massage today, Prabhupada heard a letter, an article entitled Matter Comes from Life, written by Madhava Das, another of our PhD scientists. The article, which will be published in Back to Godhead magazine, establishes scientifically that matter comes from life. Madhava is confident that this point can be proven to the scientists by utilizing newfound experimental evidence, documentation, and many logical arguments. He also submitted a list of 4 questions that he hoped Prabhupada would answer because, as he put it, you are Sat Chit Ananda and are thus full of transcendental knowledge. The first question was, Jung has said that matter is just a symbol or name that we apply to reality, but we may as well call it spirit or consciousness or any other name. Is this view consistent with our philosophy? Srila Prabhupada replied, matter originally is spirit, and when spirit is not distinctly understood, that is matter. Just like a tree is also a manifestation of spirit soul, but the consciousness is covered. When the tree is cut, it does not protest, but the moving entity has stronger consciousness than the tree. There is consciousness in the tree though. Also, consciousness in a dormant state is matter. Consciousness in a completely developed state is spirit. Matter is the symbol of undeveloped consciousness. His second question was in regard to the function of the mind. Does thinking occur in words, pictures, or what? Thinking is a subtle form of matter, Prabhupada answered, just like it says in Bhagavad Gita, Bhumir apo nalo vayu. Like the ether is subtle, the mind is more subtle form of matter. The third question concerned the external world which we perceive only through our senses and thus the mind, and ultimately the consciousness. What does this say about where things are actually happening? Is it in the mind, out there in the world, or in the spiritual world? Srila Prabhupada wrote, everything is in the spiritual world. Krishna is the sum total of spirit and everything is coming from him. Matter, spirit, everything comes from him. He is the supreme life, the origin of spirit and life. Therefore matter emanates from life. Nityo Nityanam. He is the supreme consciousness of all other consciousnesses. Finally, Madhava asked for direction on how to prove that the moon is farther away than the sun. The moon is situated 1.6 million miles above the sun, Prabhupada replied. You may refer to the 5th canto and read carefully. Prabhupada is extremely eager for the scientific preaching to be developed. He told Madhava that it must be recognized that we are not just a religious sect. Recently, Madhava taught a course at the prestigious MIT in Boston entitled Truth Beyond Relativity. The course was based on understanding the 3 aspects of the Absolute, and it was so well received that 8 scientists took copies of the Bhagavad Gita. This kind of news delights Prabhupada, and he ended his reply by telling him, I am very much pleased with your program. Thank you very much. Prabhupada also stated to Madhava that he wants our ISKCON scientists to publish their research articles in Karmi science magazines as well. If they don't accept what we say, we will go on explaining. If they do accept, then that is their benefit and our victory. So that's the end of the reading for today. Are there any questions or comments? Yes? Ended it in a little scientific note.
Hare Krishna. I just want to check if I heard correctly that last part you were reading. Matter is actually
Undeveloped consciousness.
So matter is actually spiritual, but when it's misunderstood, then it's matter. Is that what we read?
That's Prabhupada's reply. Matter originally is spirit, and when spirit is not distinctly understood, that is matter. And then later on it's mentioned, matter is the symbol of undeveloped consciousness. So yeah, I don't know what to make of that exactly, but of course we know that in the spiritual world everything is conscious. Here this like table we can't really say is conscious, but when our understanding is pure, well, we'd be in the spiritual world then, and then the table there would be conscious. But I don't know exactly what to make of that statement. And when spirit is not distinctly understood, that is matter. Okay, yes.
Can I give an answer that Aruda gave some explanation that I found really wonderful. She said that because matter is all the energy of the Lord, the devotee doesn't actually see it as being material. They see it as being the energy of the Lord to be used in His service.
Yeah, I remember that. That really struck me as well. Of course, can we call it spirit then? You know, I mean, like for example, this microphone is fully engaged in the service of the Lord. But would I call it spirit? I don't. You know, generally we'll think of spirit as something with consciousness. But definitely this microphone is more engaged in service than me. So in one sense it's more spiritual than me. So yes, you were.
Yeah, I was actually thinking, I mean also there in the Bhagavad Gita, and I think it's the invocation of the Sri Ishopanishad, where it says that everything emanates from the Supreme Lord. So if everything comes from Krishna, and Prabhupada says that he is the sum total of all spirit, then everything is spiritual. And it's just our consciousness, which is material, makes everything that we see matter. But a pure devotee sees everything as spiritual. Because he understands that everything is actually emanating from Krishna.
And I know, in the Krishna book as well, it's mentioned that Maya exists within the mind. So, yeah, it's a little bit of a grayish area, but I think it's grayish for me anyway, because I'm not of this. If I was of this understanding where I could see everything as spiritual, then for me, like how when Prahlad Maharaj looks around everywhere, he sees the Supreme Lord present in that pillar. For me and Hiranyakashipu, we just see a pillar there. So, yeah, I think as we advance in Krishna consciousness, these things will become more apparent, hopefully. Are there any other questions or comments or reflections? Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hari Sauri Prabhu ki jai.